Of all the headphone models on the planet, there are probably only like a handful of them that are considered SummitFi. And those models tend to have quite the price point associated with them.
We happen to be a manufacturer that makes headphones with quite the price point. So maybe we could talk about why that is.
We could attempt to. And we also, of course, see other people making high price point headphones too. So we could talk about why that is too. Yeah, compare it. But yeah, the reality of it is that it's expensive to make an expensive headphone product. It's highly unlikely that any company is just going to, on their first product, which we happen to do for some reason, we lucked out and our first product was considered to be exceptional, which was the 1266. But it's highly unlikely that a company's going to come out with their first product and it's going to be a banger, right? It's going to be like the best in the world.
You wouldn't count on it,
you know?
Right? So if you were starting a business to make headphones and you wanted to make a high-end headphone, it would be highly implausible that you would come out with a headphone that would actually be profitable and successful.
I mean, most companies, to get to that level, when you think about it, and it's not just headphones, it's anything. DACs, no, let's just pick on audio. Cars, right?
Well, same thing.
Your first car, your first auto is not going to be your best. Not possible.
Probably not.
Because as you do things, you realize that there's ways to do things better. And the more things you do, the more better things you can do better.
Well, you hope.
Or something like that.
But yeah, one of the reasons that you can do different things in the high end is because the volume's slow. You could try stuff out and not like have to have it like succeed in massive numbers, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
so you could do wackier stuff. Right?
If you make a mistake, it's pretty easy to resolve in low volume. Where if you make millions of something, there's no resolution to it. It's no easy resolution. So that's true. Yeah.
It is a very complicated thing because high-end headphones tends to be sort of a sweet spot where it's expensive enough that you can do kind of wacky stuff, but it's low volume. So pros and cons there. You can't do crazy exotic stuff because there's really not enough volume to find a manufacturer that's going to be excited to make this impossible to manufacture thing. So you need to figure out how to do it yourself.
Yeah, and from a business standpoint too, because it's low volume, you're probably not going to base or run your business on that one high-end model because you're not going to be able to run a company with it. You're going to have more than that going on to maintain any kind of company. So, I mean, there's a barrier to entry there, right? I mean, for a company to come in and go, hey, we're going to make a $5,000 headphone and wow, we're going to sell 1 million of them. No, it's not going to happen.
But what does this mean? What we see in high-end audio is a lot of times the people that are doing high-end headphones are usually passionate, right? They're really invested and excited to make what they think might be one of the world's best headphones. And maybe it is for them.
As we were and as we are now. I mean, we've been like that. We make these for ourselves too, right? We're using them.
Yeah.
We're just as much a customer as our customers are.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's the thing. It always comes back to an automotive reference. And I'm thinking the highest end of automobiles, Bugatti, right? And they revived the brand in 2005. And they've still, 20 years later, have not made any money. They've lost money for 20 years. And they could only Volkswagen. So that's the only way they can even exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Even though they're millions of dollars, right?
Right.
Still losing money.
And I still think looking at their build quality, they're too cheap. I mean, for a car like that with all these custom
I guess
parts.
you could only charge so much.
Right. Well, maybe, I don't know. It depends on, I mean, you got to weigh it out. But that's the thing with headphones, too. I mean, it's a niche. It's a niche and a niche and a niche, really, when you talk about the SummitFi stuff. And the customers, the people who actually do purchase products at, say, above $5,000 for a headphone are very discerning. I mean, they probably know what they want for sure. And it's a finicky crowd where they're like, they know what they want. So you can't just come in and make a headphone and charge a high price and think that group of audiophiles or headphone enthusiasts will accept it just because it's a high price. It's not the way it works.
Oh, yeah. Especially like 1266. Look how long it took for people to just accept the look. Yeah. Like the early days.
Years.
It's just the look was enough where like, I don't even want to try it.
Yeah, for people who don't know our history, we should cover that too. The AB1266 we came out with in 2013. And so it's 12 years old now. This is the fourth iteration of it. And a number of things have changed on it, but not the look. The appearance, other than finishes and fitments and leathers and all that stuff. I mean, it's changed.
Yeah, the structure's the same.
The shape is the same. Yeah. Obviously. So it's been around for 12 years. And honestly speaking, we sell as many now at $6,000 a pair, which is very expensive. It's SummitFi. It's considered one of the one of the highest end headphones in the market. We sell as many now, I think, as we did when it came out per year.
Yeah, more or less.
And so, that hasn't changed either. So we kind of have a grasp on how many headphones this shape you could sell. And people say, well, why don't you make it look better? Why don't you make it this? Well, then it wouldn't be an AB1266, right? It wouldn't be what it is. It's unique in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people buy it. And it offers things that other headphones can't. But aside from all that, the point is that we're deep into this with this. It was our first product. It wasn't, but as a company, it wasn't our first product. We were around way before headphones.
But as a headphone company, it was
as a headphone company, it was our first product. And a lot of people thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, as did we. I mean, we spent 5 years developing it, right? But that defined SummitFi. And I should probably, since we're at history now, I should probably say, before this headphone came out, at the time it was $5,000. The only headphone in the world that was anywhere near its price was Stax. So at the time we came out with this headphone, the only headphone in the world that was anywhere near it in price, at, I don't know, it was close, $4,500, whatever it was the Stax SR09. It had no competition.
Well, if you don't include the original Orpheus, I guess. Yeah. But it wasn't out anymore at the time.
Yeah.
But.
What I'm saying, I mean, you think about it, there was nothing else at that price point. And, this kind of like got a lot of attention because of that. So in reality, if you think about it, going back a dozen years or so, the 1266 really started the SummitFi revolution, so to speak, because nothing else existed other than Stax. And and around it people built amplifiers to drive it because it was a pig for power. And you think about it, there was a lot that went on around this one headphone, and it's still going today. But and again, though, when you look at its competition or who else has come up to plate to make a headphone at this caliber, there's not a lot. And why don't we talk about some of the reasons? Like, what are the challenges here in making a headphone like this? We know all about it.
Well, pretty much everything. That's sort of the summary. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense to invest in a platform like that, a whole new architecture to actually truly make a actual ground up SummitFi headphone. So that's typically why you only see kind of the smaller operators really going for it and investing the time, the effort, the money into making something like that. And it tends to mean you kind of get different flavors from manufacturer to manufacturer, because these are individual people, oftentimes very small teams, and they're to some extent devoting their life, or at least a significant portion of it, to make a product like this. So it's really hard to scale that across companies. It's hard to get like a big company to want to do that, because there's not a strong financial incentive.
Apple's not interested in something like this.
It's very challenging to do.
Yeah, I'm sure they think it's cool and all that, but
and you need people that know.
You're not going to make 100 million of them.
Right. You need to know the market. You need to be passionate, and you really care. You need to figure out how your product can deliver something somewhere in the experience.
There's companies out there that have done that. I mean, you've got Odyssey that's up at has had high level SummitFi. Who else is there really up at that level? There's a few. There's some that have exceeded that by selling whole systems. Like Sennheiser came out with that. What the hell? It's HE1, was it?
HE1.
HE1, right? And it's, I don't know, I think it's up to 70 grand
now,
or something like that. But it's an entire system. It's a DAC, tube amplifier, and headphone, all in a marble case and all this fancy stuff. So that's a whole different league. That is, I don't even think you'd call that SummitFi. That's more like
if there is a level above it, that's what that is.
Yeah, it's, I mean, being a small company like ours, like you said before, we are kind of able to devote an awful lot of time because it's more of a project of passion. We're more passionate about trying to make something crazy good, where more of a mass marketer is interested in totally different focus on the products. It's a completely different thing. So at this level, when you get to this level, I mean, in order to make a product that's going to satiate or satisfy the customer who's willing to pay for it, we have to pay attention to a ton of details throughout the construction of it, and everything's just tweaked to the max. And when you think about that, you can't do that overnight. You can't do that in a day. You don't even do it in weeks or months. It's typically measured to make a product. The time to do it is measured in years.
There's always a battle between where you devote your resources. And when you're a passionate hobbyist, a small-time operator trying to make the best thing ever that has ever existed, maybe it's only for you that you're doing that, but there's a lot of challenges in figuring out where you should place your time, how much effort you should put into the individual components. Because, of course, you could spend limitless effort into figuring out the exact fastener and how much the different metals, materials, or coatings or whatever impact the performance. And you could make some, marginal impact on the product. But figuring out the whole system so that it works well, it's seamless, it's a good user experience, you get the comfort, the weight, the price, where it needs to be.
It tends to be like a work in progress, really, when you think
Right.
about it. We're constantly doing this. We're learning as we go along through it, just like any company that's, making unique products. We're learning as we go along for sure. And, there's no, and that's something we should touch upon too. At this level, there is no textbook design for it. It doesn't exist. In fact, most of the planar headphones, there's no textbook. There's nothing you could pick up and read about how to make a planar driver. You can go through the USPTO or the patents and take a look at
patents,
what people have, but that just touches upon ideas.
Right.
You still have to figure out how to make the thing and make it sound good. And there's acoustics involved that aren't really in the patents. There's things that are in there that are know-how that
they are specifically vague.
Well, yeah, sure. Well, they're made to protect the product to a point, but yeah, they call that trade secret, so to speak. It's like no one knows how Coke's really made, right? Except Coke.
Well, it's not patented.
That's why. Because if it was, everyone would know how it's made.
Right.
So yeah, but there's a lot of know-how and trade secret involved with building anything at this level, and but we're always constantly learning. So that's something to consider. Where, like you said, how much time can a company or a small team devote to any one project? The answer is, without going out of business, it has to stop somewhere, and you have to physically make the product. You have to make something that sells and produces income. You have to.
I think that's actually more profound than most people would recognize, though, because you really can spend, if you're truly passionate, you could spend nearly an unlimited amount of time
A lifetime.
on almost any part of almost any product. So there is a question of what's good enough, what's acceptable, and how much benefit could I get out of the product if I put my effort somewhere else. And very much, it's not a linear process. Development in general isn't linear.
No.
It's not like the more you work, the more time you spend, the better it gets. You kind of build an understanding of the product, and maybe your understanding grows over time. But it doesn't intrinsically mean the product gets better over time. You hope it does. But it is a very fickle thing to get it to where every component doesn't have major oversights. They all work well together. It's a compelling product that someone wants to buy.
We're seeing more and more companies coming out, like one-person companies, maybe two people, who are making a headphone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then throwing a price on it, whatever that price needs to be that they think it's worth, its value for what it is, and throwing it out there. And you get a small number of people who are willing to take the plunge,
Right.
try it out, spend the bucks. And we're talking $1,000 or $2,000. We're not talking inexpensive.
Yeah, there's a ton of
product.
these hobbyists working at this now, which is it's a big change in the industry.
Yeah.
I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to see, and
Mhm.
now we haven't seen anything that's like monumental shift in any kind of technology or anything. It's just basically
No, but there's been some pretty cool stuff.
but it's neat how they implement it, and that's I think that's what separates companies is the way you implement the
Well,
technology.
everybody comes at it at a different angle,
Totally.
But I'm trying to get to the same goal, really, but
Well, the
differently.
best sound you can, at least what you can with given their tech, and but to break it down in a nutshell, to get to SummitFi level, you are spending a hell of a lot of time, optimizing the audio, the ability of the transducers to reproduce, the acoustics, the ear pads, the fit and finish, the feel of it. It all has to come together in like a cohesive package to demand that kind of money, and and it better perform. Otherwise, you're just going to get laughed out of the market.
Well, yeah, because I remember pre-2013, before we started shipping anything, like 5, 6, 7 years before that, when we were first thinking about it, and we tried to make our first drivers, and it was like we gave up because it's like, this sucks.
Yeah.
So we gave up a few times.
Yeah. Initially, we think, we could just get a driver off the shelf,
right.
a dynamic driver, and just like, we'll make it sound good with whatever acoustics and all that. Yeah, right. You can't start with a bad egg and make it fresh. It
It's
doesn't
very
work.
difficult.
Yeah, it not doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So yeah, we were. It was kind of cool to go through that process though, when you think about it, because we started from scratch.
Right.
We started with very little knowledge really on planar driver technology, to a point where we created our own, and we patented it. And it was different. It was unique because we had no preconceived notions, right?
Well,
So-
kinda.
Well, we knew that we needed a magnet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and we needed a something really thin with a trace pattern on it to run current through.
Not always, but yeah.
And we needed to put them close together so it made a motor structure and produced sound. But beyond that, we really didn't know much about producing a high-end planar driver. And in that point, there wasn't too many people doing it either. I mean, you had some speaker manufacturers that were out for a long time, like since the 70s, I think. Well,
Yeah.
Quad was an electrostat version, but Quad was a planar style driver.
Maggie.
Yeah, Magnapans. Yeah, they've been around a long time. And those guys, but it's speakers, which was a different kind of thing. They were, speakers in a room are, let's call it less finicky than a speaker next to your ear. So,
Quite different.
It's quite different. You can get away with a bit more with speakers. And but bottom line is that to be able to get to this level, to a SummitFi level, proved to be a hell of an engineering challenge. And quite a learning curve.
Yeah. But now that we got that base knowledge, it's a lot easier to going forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, another automotive thing. It does remind me Doble, the steam car. It's like that guy. He was a perfectionist, right? And they only made like 20 cars, and the company went out of business because every car he wanted to change everything and make everything better. So every car was different, and he went out of business.
Yeah. Well, yeah. At some point, you run out of money and
They
time.
were really good though, apparently.
Yeah.
But they only made a few cars.
Yeah. Well, hence the reason why like we had to take this and trickle down to a Diana, which is a more and now the Joel, which
Conventional.
more conventional fitment, and just made more sense to more people, and because you can't, again, back to the beginning, you can't run a company really off of one product. It's not really feasible long term, especially at a high price point with low volume. It just doesn't work. So but you could see, just talking about it, you could see the barrier to entry, and and there's then there's also, each company has a different level, or let's call it ceiling, to their technology, right? I mean,
I wouldn't say it's intrinsically a limitation of the technology. It seems, from my perspective, to be more often a limitation of their will to some extent. It seems people far too often determine that something is good enough or as good as it can be, or they can't envision a way where it could be improved. Maybe they're just not willing to do it and they give up.
I call it a ceiling. You hit a ceiling. You just either you don't have the in-house talent, or the other thing is a lot of manufacturers rely on other companies' tech. They're using speakers from other companies. In the 2-channel world, in the speaker world, it's like that. Most of them don't make bass drivers or tweeters. They buy, let's call it, off the shelf, and these are high-end manufacturers making, or higher-end, transducer manufacturers making tweeters, woofers, mid-range drivers, and they're building cabinets and crossovers and making it from, making their own sound, But again, you think about it in the headphone world. All right, you buy a driver or a speaker from somebody, you're limited to that tech, and you don't have the capability of changing it up. So again, you're just building a thing around it, and whatever it's capable of, that's it. You're done. You can't take it any further. Where companies like ours and a few others, we build everything. We completely build it from scratch. We build our own transducer, and we're capable of modifying the design at will. And so that allows you to go to a way higher level.
There's pros and cons to each approach, though, because if you make everything yourself, it means you have to make everything yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just buy it in,
Everything.
It's done, it works, it's operational, but getting a company to improve something dramatically is going to be very difficult. Unless you're moving high volume for them, it's very, very challenging to convince someone else to do something for you.
That's the beauty of SummitFi speakers or headphones. It challenges others to do better. And that's the cool thing. That's what brought us to where we are today, where people have choices like that. They have tons of tube amps and solid state amps, and these are all headphone amps. Never existed a dozen years ago. It didn't exist.
Which it also means there's a lot more very inefficient headphones now.
Yeah.
Because there can be.
Right. Yeah, they're fortunate. Yeah,
Right.
these guys making these inefficient headphones are fortunate to come into a marketplace that already exists and has support for them with equipment. Where it was at the beginning for us, that didn't exist. We didn't have it.
Everything was
We had to beg
milliwatts.
people. We had to beg 2-channel guys, can you make us headphone amp? for
Yeah,
us?
a little bit actually. And
You know?
there's a pretty good spectrum of stuff out there now, which is, I think, great.
It's
and
great.
It's easier than ever to get into the market to make your own headphones. We see more and more DIY designs. It's super cool to see, I think.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's totally awesome. And yeah, I mean, it helps too because all that's trickling down throughout price ranges, including our own designs. So things are getting better at the lower end of things too, way better, significantly better. You know, in terms of sound quality and ease of use and all the above. I mean, it's just, you know, and price is getting better too. You're getting more bang for the buck nowadays than ever before in audio. And, you know, and I see this throughout the entire industry. It's not just headphones. It's anywhere in audio. It's everything, receivers and amplification and speakers and all the good stuff. So anyway, everyone that's into audio, if you're not into it, get into it. It's fun. It's a neat hobby. It can be expensive, but it doesn't have to be. And, you know, a small percentage of people that try this will find that they get bit by the bug and they'll go gung-ho, and others just stay put where they are, and that's fine too. It just depends on whether you're a gambler or not, I guess.
Sure.
So have at it, everyone. Thank you much for watching. Take care of yourselves.